Hey everybody, welcome to Pork Corner. My name is Piglet, and today I'm going to be showing you how I use my colored pencil approach in Photoshop. I'm going to do a little bit in Clip Studio, but that's just going to be an optional thing if you want to do the exact same process I'm doing. You don't have to, but yeah, let's get into it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, so we're not going to be using a whole lot of brushes. And as usual, we're going to be using the approach of showing you a really terrible drawing in order to get across the process pretty quickly so that it's easier for you to follow. Okay, so as you can see here, I have two Street Fighter characters up. That's Elena and Chun-Li. I did the same kind of approach with the colored pencil thing. I'm going to be showing you. It's a little bit different in each one of these. So if you can see that the Chun-Li one is a bit more rendered, so that's if you wanted to take it all the way and use the pencil throughout and just render up all your values, kind of make it look like a mixture of a painting and pastel. I'll break down how that works layer-wise before I jump into the video process that I have of the example working in the actual Chun-Li image, which I recorded, because I want to do a little short demo just to show you step by step by step quickly. But there's two different approaches. So the Elena one on the left, that one's a bit more simplified, where I'm letting my inks kind of live in the image still. It kind of evokes this like 90s Capcom era feeling, which I like, and it makes me feel like a lot of the old PlayStation 1 stuff used to make me feel, concept art wise, which is a nice thing to kind of evoke. I like that. The one on the right, the Chun-Li, that's more of like my style rendering throughout as far as the execution goes, but it also has the same kind of old PlayStation 1 feeling that I get from RPGs like Suikoden 2, specifically the cover for that game. I was always a big fan of that style. It was like a watercolor ink and also colored pencil look, and for whatever reason, I think my nostalgia is kind of like glued to that aesthetic. So I tend to really gravitate towards that kind of imagery. So that's why this one looks the way it does. The Elena one, I like it for quicker things, and I think that it works pretty well. But yeah, they're just slightly different tweaks to the same style. The Chun-Li one is just basically the Elena one you're seeing here pushed a lot further. So I'm going to now show you an example of what this approach looks like when I'm actually doing it. So let's make sure I'm using the right brush. So this is a modified version of a Kyle T. Webster pencil brush. So with this one, I'm going to be doing just a really shitty skull drawing, the same kind of thing that I was doing in the basics video, which I guess I might call this one basics. I don't know. So you can choose any color you want. Doesn't need to be blue, doesn't need to be red, doesn't need to be anything. It's just, I like having my color pop out a bit. All right. So first things first, I just start sketching around. Oh, by the way, this brush is set to 25% opacity. So let's just do a little goofy skull guy. Okay, we got the nose hole, which is very important. And we got the big smile here. Look at all those teeth there. Teeth are important for skulls. Gotta knock those jelly gobstopper teeth. What would they be called? Gumdrop teeth. Gotta knock those in, and then obviously skulls have eyes, so big ol' eyeballs. That one doesn't read well enough for me. Okay. Let's have him looking off to the side like that. All right, so this is what I would do. I just do a rough sketch like this. This is one layer. Okay, so then after that, after I have my initial sketch done like this, I just usually flip my canvas horizontally to make sure I can see the shittiness of the sketch, because a lot of your imperfections show when you flip it. It's a nice way of doing that. You take a sip of alcohol, because you have to have alcohol in order to draw something that scary. I don't even know where it went. Where is it? There it is. Okay. All right, so turn the opacity down on this, and what I will do now generally is I'll do another pass just to clean things up. So I'll use like a red color. Red is just a color I'll choose to make it discernible from the blue. That's it. Because if I were doing black on gray or just black on black, you know, it just blends together a bit. So I'm just going in. This is on a new layer, cleaning it up a bit. Yeah, just making those eyes look really, 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 really good. You know, that's really important. Really, really important. Especially when you're here at Pork Corner Studios, where you eat everything and the asshole, or whatever they do with pigs. I'm pretty sure we all have eaten a pig's asshole if you've had hot dogs, right? That means you've had the testicles too, which is also very important to keep in mind. All right, so this is just me cleaning up the sketch. That's it. Just refining things real quickly. Just using one brush. And this is a pretty simple process because I tend to use one brush throughout the whole thing all the way to the finish. There's like one other brush from Gregor Rutkowski. I'm getting pretty good at making believe I understand that name. I'll have a link to his brushes in this post. But aside from this Kyle T. Webster brush, it's that. And if you want to do the Clip Studio part, then you can add that in as well, which is just another inking brush, which I'll also have attached to this post. Okay. So there is a refined drawing of a skull. So you can do two things after this. You can stay in Photoshop here, and let's just lower the opacity of this layer, and then you can do your final lines if you want, just using the pencil brush, which is fine. But if you want that inked PS1 RPG kind of vibe I was talking about, then you probably want to ink this. And you could ink this with some inking brushes in Photoshop. I have some from Kyle T. Webster again that are pretty nice. If I go to my list of brushes that I got, I have some from his paint box brush set, his drawing box, and his inking box or ink box. And from his ink box one, I like the pulp inker. I think that one's pretty good. I just lower it down to a super small brush. So this is like 5 for this canvas here. And I would just ink it like this. Or, like I was saying, you could do the final lines in just a black pencil style thing. But yeah, something like that. So I will pause this video real quick and show you what this would look like in Clip Studio. Okay, here we are back in Clip Studio now. So what I'll do is, again, same thing, lower the opacity on this drawing. Let's go ahead and flip it back around. And now I have the inking brush that's attached to this post. And I will just quickly ink this skull. And I like using this brush because in Clip Studio, there's almost like a stickiness to the brushes, which I don't know if that's a gross word to use, but it just feels like the lines really cling to your movements pretty well. I don't know if that's like a thing that fixes your kind of like lines or whatever artificially. Like some of them have like a guide to them that makes your stuff look better. But I have the same kind of execution in Photoshop. I just think that Clips brushes, especially for inking, for me, they feel a little bit better. So it's hard for me to get away from this brush in particular, or my inking brushes that I have in Clip. I'm going to avoid doing a lot of rendering lines because that's a lot of lines that you need to clean up in the end of this. So I want this to be mostly simple lines that are structural, that are important to the drawing, but not doing like any excess shading and things. I'm going to do all of that with the pencil brush. Man, this skull's looking so cool. He's looking really overwhelmed. He's looking a little stressed. I like that. Adds to his skeletal appearance. You can tell why he died. It was an overworked life. So that's cool to me. It's very interesting character development. There's a story in this skeleton, and we're uncovering it together. Here in Pork Corner with your host, Piglet. Okay, so here we have a really bad inked drawing. And then what I do with my inks in this style is I duplicate the layer, and then I go to filter and I blur, and I do Gaussian blur. And you can see what that does to the lines. It just gives them a bit of a fuzziness to them. So I set this layer to multiply, and I also want to set my inking layer to multiply. They should both be multiply. And then I turn the blurry layer down to about 60%. So it just gives the illusion that I inked an actual piece of paper and the ink bled into the page a little bit. So that's really all I wanted to do. Okay, we're going to hop back over into Photoshop and continue the process. Okay, here we are back in Photoshop. And now I'm going to start doing my color fills. So hopefully your line drawing is intact. There's not a lot of holes on the outside of it, so that you can quickly just do the magic wand tool, select around the outside of your drawing, and then hopefully it doesn't select all the inside. As you can see on mine, I did not fill in all the holes. So let's fill in the holes. Look for holes. You don't have to do this. You could fill it in manually, but for the sake of this video, I want to speed things along. I think that's all of them. Okay. Oh my goodness. That wasn't all of them, everybody. Was that it? Where do you see the holes? I don't know. Is that the last one? Okay, that was the last one. Okay, so I select the outside and the spots that aren't going to have color, and then I do select inverse. So I'm only selecting the inside now, as opposed to the outside of the skull, or everything around the skull. And now I'm just going to fill in with the base color. So as everybody can tell by the drawing, that this is the iconic Marvel villain Red Skull. So that's there. Okay, so I have this fill layer here of color beneath my inked layers. Now I'm going to make, let's call it 3 layers above that. I'm going to select those 3 layers, right click on them, create clipping mask. So now everything I do on these layers will only affect this red area. Okay, now I'm going to use the other brush that I use, which is just that Gregor Rutkowski, just kind of like a texture-y fill brush. I like the way that it looks because it kind of blends with the colored pencil feel. It might be in his free oils on his Gumroad. I'm not sure. It's in one of his brush set collections. It's the one that looks like a diamond. And I think I've downloaded all his brushes, so yeah. All right, so we're just going for something quick here. Wow, that's so menacing. I'm gonna choose a color for the eye. Boom. All right, so now I'm gonna do a little bit of rendering on the head using this same brush. I'm gonna set my opacity to, let's say, like 50% on the brush. So I just press 5 on my keyboard. And now I'm just gonna be dropping in some values. And I'm doing this on a layer below the eyeball tooth layer. I like the graininess of it, really. I think that gives a pretty nice transition over into the pencils, because the pencils have like a grit look to them anyway. So it feels a bit like a graphite type thing. But whatever works for you. I mean, if you find something that works with a pencil brush, then go for that. This is just what I'm using. Okay, now I'm going to just add some rendering slightly to the teeth. Okay, so the next thing I'll do is I'll just add a little bit of highlight kind of things. I usually do like a shadows layer and then a highlights layer for my base colors like this. So here's a little bit of a highlight. And really all I'm doing is laying down some foundational colors that I can pull from when I'm using the pencil. That's it. I just need some values there for when I'm rendering with the pencil. That's the easiest way of putting it, so that I can just not have to introduce anything new. Just go in and draw with what's there, colors that are already there. Okay, so we have that, and it's really, really, really good. And that's exactly what we were hoping for. Now, here's an optional thing. You can do this if you like. I will just use a soft round brush, and on a soft light layer, I will just grab some like darker values, like maybe like a purple color or something. And then with my opacity on my brush set to 20%, I'll just start brushing in the shadows here. Just adds a little bit of a color shift to it. Introduce more tones to pull from when I'm doing my colored pencil finish. All right. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. We did it. Okay. So now what I do is I use my colored pencil brush to draw over top the whole thing. So make a new layer above your inked lines. Choose your pencil brush. And now I just essentially select colors that are there and render with them. A lot of times, just to blend in the black inked lines, you could do a thing where you just colorize those lines. So like I could do a clipping mask on my line layer and just adjust them. Or I could do a selective color on my line layer, go to blacks, and then just adjust to a different tone and, you know, make them blend a bit more like that. You can do that if you don't want it to be so stark. And if you did your final lines with your pencil brush, it should be pretty seamless anyway with the texture. I just kind of like the way it looks with the inked lines. So yeah, you can see how that would look. Okay, so on that new layer, I have my pencil brush set to 25% flow. And honestly, what I do if I'm not just selecting colors and rendering is I'll sometimes just select white and draw with that. That's what Drew Struzan did a lot of times for his like finished movie posters. So he used a white colored pencil. Then I'll just render in some spot highlights like that. Just real quick. Most of what you're trying to do is create a strong drawing. So if your drawing's really strong, then I feel that this step rendering kind of comes together pretty quick. As long as you have your values and your colors in place for the underlying flat colors, you should be pretty good. But establishing that lighting there is kind of key, because that way you're not drawing over too much of your lines as you're doing this phase. So this is all me using the eyedropper, just pressing Alt on the keyboard, rendering a bit, pressing it again, selecting a new color, because I like the way, like if I sketch out here, the way that blends in with the other colors creates a new color. So then I want to select that new color with the eyedropper and render with that to create this nice transitioning shadow. But yeah, blending this way is it's just really satisfying. It just feels pretty simple and it's quick. I think the results look pretty good, but to me, it's more of the nostalgia of it, I guess. It takes me back to being a kid of when I used to draw like this. So I'm really attracted to it in that way. But yeah, you can see how quickly this kind of comes together. And honestly, that's pretty much it. The only thing I do after this is I will maybe do, like I'll show you, I might do another layer where I use the soft round brush, set my opacity to 10%, choose the colors that are already here, like the white of the eye, and just add like a glow like that. And then I'll do adjustment layers. So you choose this little half circle down here underneath the layers and the layers menu. I'll go to selective color and just choose colors that are here in this character and just mess with them to see if I can find something I like. And I could do that with every color. And then color balance, that kind of stuff. So yeah. that's essentially the process of how I created those Chun-Li and Elena pieces. That's how I got to this here. And I don't know. I like it. I like the way it feels. And I'm probably going to pursue it more. This is like kind of an evolved version. If you ever saw my Chrono Trigger portraits, it's like a step up from those as far as the rendering goes. But now let's watch the actual video here. So here I am rendering out Chun-Li. You can see that what I have is outside of like the face and well, yeah, I'm breaking it down right now, the layers. I'm showing you like where I rendered a bit with the flats on with that diamond brush, and then color adjustments and drop shadows and things. It's the like soft light layers, and then I had like a multiply layer with like a certain color. And then everything else that happens rendering wise is all done with the colored pencil. Well, with the pencil brush, which just looks like a colored pencil. But what's on the arm kind of coming forward, like this one, those are all just flats. So that's all beneath the inks. And then I render on top of it. But most of what I've done is losing some of the ink lines in the face with like just darker, just a darker version of the skin tone. And that's a really easy way to do that. So yeah, there's a lot of rendering going on. But yeah, it's a fun style. I think that the sketchbook vibe for me is what is the most attractive. I find that it's a bit freeing. It's nice to not feel like I'm doing a super finished painting. But even then, it still feels pretty finished in the final, which I was a little curious about. I was wondering, would this look done, or would it have some kind of loose sketchiness to it? But no, but it's just been a minute since I've done it. So yeah, I mean, if you have access to Photoshop, you can download Kyle T. Webster's brushes, and he has a really good amount of like inking and pencil-y brushes. He has a lot of pastel, gouache, that kind of thing. So you can play with those and see if anything stands out to you as something you'd want to use for something like this. But I like to keep things as simple as possible. So if I find one brush that works, I always see what I can do with that one brush. So if I can use that one brush and finish a whole image with it, then I'm going to try and do that. Just what can I get out of it and simplify my process as much as possible, because I'm not trying to spend a million hours on a thing playing with all of the different brushes. Like I do that out of necessity of trying to find a new style or a new approach. I'll just look through a bunch of different brushes from people and try and find things that work for me, and hopefully in the new kind of look I'm going for or whatever else. And then if there's something there that sticks, then that's great, and I'll try and use that to its full ability. But yeah, I keep things nice and easy for myself. I don't want to make it overly complicated. I'm not the kind of painter that's going to do a ton of loose landscape paintings with a bunch of textured brushes. I just don't feel any enjoyment in the discovery of that. It just doesn't make me happy. So I like being pretty literal with my stuff. So if something works as a tight drawing brush and I can also paint with it a little bit or do like a pastel look or something, then that's what I'm going to use. So it's nice. Cheers from Pork Corner. Man, Piglet's getting fucked up. What I like too about this approach is that each stage of it feels pretty finished to me. And I've talked about this before, but that was the thing I took away from that Drew Struzan drawing Hellboy video where he had the movie poster, where his whole philosophy on it was to have his piece look complete at every stage. And I think about that a lot now. And if I can create a style that looks finished at every stage, then that's kind of what I'm aiming at. And I feel that way about this approach. I think that this has that feeling of just being done at each stage. Like I could have stopped at the inked and underpainting look of it, especially with that skeleton. That skeleton definitely looked like that, didn't it? You can't see it on here, but you can see it in my little video. Look at that skeleton. Look at him looking at me. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. So, if I look crazy, if my beard's starting to look crazy, it's because I haven't cut my hair in a really long time. I've just been working nonstop, so I've fallen off a bit. Then I'm drinking alcohol right now, so you can tell that things are spiraling. I actually have alcohol, and then right over here is a fresh cup of tea. So that's really cool. I'm trying to balance it out so I don't get too tired from the alcohol. Got to make sure I have that. And then I've also been, I already explained the process, so just hopefully enjoy watching this while I tell you some things. I started taking CBD. I have these gummies. I don't know. I'll show you. I'm not sponsored or anything, but I just have these gummies. And I had crazy anxiety for so long, like crippling anxiety. And I've talked about that on here before, where my workload and just like what I put myself through to get things done and how much I've done in the past year. It's just been so insane that I've had this lingering thing for, I don't know, my whole life, I guess. But I never really thought about it until I had a kid and just had to balance everything. And then life got so chaotic and I just felt like shit so often, or just like very intense, very like high strung. So I started taking this CBD and oh my God, it literally feels like I just flipped a switch and then I'm a different person now. So it has no THC in it, so you're not going to like get high or anything. So don't worry about that. But it just, I don't know. It doesn't do much for me as far as like making me sleepy or anything. But I'm just saying this in case, because I would have liked somebody to tell me this if I, had crazy anxiety like I did. I would want somebody to point me in this direction. I just got so desperate. I started looking for anything, and I didn't want to go on any kind of prescription stuff. So I found that, and I just started taking it for the past, I don't know, couple weeks now. And it's just made such a huge change in my attitude, my mood, and just how I manage things. I used to think of everything at once, and now I think of one thing at a time. It's wonderful. But I'm still, getting as much work done. I just am not beating myself up. Yeah. Oh, I sped this video up double the speed. So that's why it's a little bit faster than normal, but these things come together pretty quickly for me. The video that you're watching is about an hour long, a little under an hour in total before I sped it up. And what I was doing was pretty much all of the rendering below the hand here. Well, but also her arm going back and then her arm coming down to like the fist that's like this, and then her legs and the whole background that I end up doing. So a lot went into it in just an hour, which is great because everything rests on the drawing. Once the drawing is done like this, then you really don't have to worry too much. things can come together relatively quickly. If your bones are good in your drawing, in your image, whatever it is, in your painting, if you have a good composition, solid design, things are working foundationally, then you're usually pretty good going through, as long as you don't make any drastic changes to something that's already working, unless you're addressing a problem as you go. But for me, most all of my stuff before the past couple years, all my paintings, took me like a million years because I just wasn't doing strong drawings. I didn't have a strong foundation. So the fact that I'm able to knock out finished images in just a day or two is really something, because I never did that before. That's a whole new thing, and it has to do with just working on drawing a lot, focusing on drawing from artists I like. So looked at a lot of artists that I thought were great, followed their examples, saw what they were doing, tried to emulate some of that, the style, the posing, the anatomy, simplification of anatomy, those kinds of things. So yeah, it was a big change. Man. Yeah, this whole phase is the rendering over top. I do use the kind of graphite-y, chalky diamond brush on the leg to kind of fix things as I go. That's because the leg was the weakest aspect of this drawing. I think I just rushed through it, so I had to fix a lot of that as I went through this phase of drawing over top. But the cool thing about this style is that the introduction of the new pencil lines over top doesn't really break up your drawing too much, because it flows a bit seamlessly into the lines that are already there, because you can essentially draw with that brush anyway. So you could be drawing the whole time. It's not a big deal. I'm going to let this skip ahead just a little bit. Okay, here I am using that diamond brush to fix up the leg. I was trying to figure out what was up with it, and I realized it was the lighting on it was off. So I try a few things to address it, and then I end up, kind of going back to the original's lighting, but you'll see. I also keep open reference of the character as I do these, just to make sure I'm maintaining the feel, look of the design, while also doing my own thing. To talk about just the concept in general, this Chun-Li I wanted to feel a bit more Asian-y, which I know is a very cool thing to say, but my son's Asian, so deal with it. He's very Asian-y. So I wanted to maintain the look of the Street Fighter designs that Chun-Li's had, while also giving her slightly more Asian eyes and face, and also not making her like white lady pale. Which I know what you're saying. You're like, Dave, do you really think all Asian people have yellow skin? I mean, not all of them, but some do, or it leans that way. So that's kind of what I was going for. And then I went for the most Asian thing, which is adding cherry blossoms. No, I just wanted to add something feminine to it, and I just felt like it was the easiest thing to think of, so I just went with that. It's just my first thought, And I was like, that's fine. It works and the colors work together, so that's going to be okay. And then I kept having to tell myself, I was like, it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. But yeah, I don't really think too much about these simple concepts like this. I didn't really have this big plan for these. I just wanted to do something to play with the rendering style I showed. I just was going to say show and shared at the same time. I shared with you. So that's what these are. They're me learning more, and I use fan art as a means to learn because they're established characters. It's an easy way to just knock out a style and not have to worry about character design. So you can just build off of something that already exists, and that's good enough. And then hopefully I can learn something to pull into my other work. So I feel that I learned a lot from this. Like, I think it came out cool. I'm just not exactly sure how I would use this going forward. Maybe I'll just keep pushing it and see where it goes. Because it is a big deviation from my painted stuff. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's a good thing. Just switch it up a bit. But I have so many different styles that I use for executing my images that it's kind of like what's the value to each one? And I mean value, like, what worth does it have? It's hard to judge that. I can't really tell. I don't know if one's better than the other. I think each one kind of would maybe suit a different purpose. So I try to find something that I can use commercially, which I find the painting style works best for that. But even then, I'm kind of like not totally sold on how I'm painting now. I think with a lot of my paintings, like, okay, if you look at this thing here, this Chun-Li, there's a lot of texture going on. So if you download the high-res image of this Chun-Li one and look at it up close, tons of texture in the thing, and I love that. So I would love for my paintings to have a texture, not necessarily this texture, but just a more realistic painted texture. And I find that while I like a lot of my final paintings, they're very glossy and they don't have that like grit to them. So it's hard. I'm trying to find a good balance of things. But yeah, I mean, I'll figure it out as I go. But it is interesting trying to get to this like happy medium. Happy Medium should be a show where like Pee Wee Herman talks to ghosts. Something like that. One of those kinds of characters. Yeah, I'm trying to find a balance. I don't really have something that's where I want to be at. Like when I look at a painter like Noriyoshi Orai, there's so much texture there that I'm not getting. And I know it's because his is traditional, but I haven't found a solution where I have a brush that looks good, that looks traditional, but also I can render everything the same way I can with the control that I get from like a clip studio. I know it's a matter of just digging, but looking back at like my Evangelion pieces, all the characters themselves, they almost look too clean and toy-like. I don't know. It's a learning curve. We'll get there. But I wouldn't be able to go down all these rabbit holes style-wise without Patreon, so I appreciate it. It's been a really great experience for me. And, you know, I couldn't be more grateful to all of you. It's been just like probably the biggest evolution of my style thus far in my career. It's the quickest evolution, I would say, where I feel like I'm moving super fast towards a goal and things are coming, they're coming along pretty quick. I feel like I'm almost to a place where I'm feeling satisfied. Like I'm proud of the things that I'm putting out, and I feel good about them, especially the bigger ones, the ones that I invest a ton of time into. But I don't feel like I'm at an end anytime soon. I feel like I'm close to some kind of textural thing that'll work. Like doing this is a big step for me because I find that this textured look looks so nice to me that if I could get there with a paintbrush look, the same way that this looks like authentic pencil, then I'd be pretty happy. Maybe I just got to look online for more resources, or maybe use old resources that I have that didn't work for me at first, but now that I've adjusted my pressure sensitivity problems with my tablet, maybe they'll work now. We'll see. I really just want to be able to do not like Frazetta stuff, but just something that feels good like that kind of warmth to it, that realness. I talked about that in the previous video about how the traditional stuff stands out for some reason, like people gravitate towards it a bit more. And I need to kind of identify how I can get that in other mediums besides this, because I do think that this works. Like this inking thing and the pencils, that feels very authentic. So I don't really need to do more there as far as the discovery goes. But I just want to find something else for my paintings. If I can find that thing with the paintings, then I'll hopefully be more satisfied. I try to do that with the Goku, kind of realistic Goku thing. I was just trying a bunch of new brushes, trying to see if something worked. I wasn't super pleased with that. It felt, I don't know, not great to me. It felt kind of corny, or just his mouth was too small. Something about it was wrong. I'm not sure. But that's just my own internal thing. People said nice things about it, so there's that. I think this is better than that aesthetically. This is more or less how I did the guts and Casca pieces a while ago, if you saw those portraits. I'm also watching this with you, trying to, like when football players, they all sit with the coach and watch old games and see what they did wrong. That's kind of what this is for me. It's me sitting there huddled around trying to figure out what went wrong play by play. It's also nice to reflect on these kinds of things. I think that's super important, to break down why things work or didn't work, or what you learned from them, and just keep that going. And to talk like this and teach you all about it helps cement all of those things in my mind. Because it could just be a fleeting thought, but if you teach somebody the thing that you learned, then you're more likely to hold on to it. So this has been really good for that. I can just, keep a lot of those thoughts here, not just, coming out of my twirly piglet ass. Piglet's just a name I chose today. I have a lot of names: Cozy Chris, Macchiato Mike, Meat Stick, Devil Dog, Lip Fucker, Bulldog with a cunt. I should have bleeped that last one. Yeah, I'm doing a thing with the chalky brush here, just trying to fade it a bit on the bottom, just to blend it down into the canvas more naturally. I was looking at my previous Elena one to see if I did something better there, something that worked better. Oh, that's funny. I just turned a layer on and off, like a white shine layer in her hair, and I don't think I ever turned that back on for the final. I wonder if I messed up. That's what happens when you use too many layers. All right, I'm going to let this speed up a bit, and then I'll join you back. This is when I started to try and figure out what else could I put in the background here. I like this pencil brush in Photoshop specifically because I feel that I can get across more information faster than I can in Clip. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's the way the brush feels. If it's like with Clip, it's much more of an accuracy thing. And in Photoshop, I can be more expressive because of the looseness of it. I'm not really sure, but I can do like a quick tree branch thing in the background there and start drawing some cherry blossom stuff. And I can't really do that in Clip. I don't know how to put it into words though. It's very specific, the feeling of that. It feels like the brush maybe gets too small in Clip. I don't know. Or it just doesn't have the same feeling, I guess, is more or less what it is. The flow of it and all. It's hard to get that. But there are some pretty nice pencil brushes in Clip. You could do most of what I'm doing here in Clip Studio just fine. You just need to find the right kind of real pencil brush, which there's a ton of. I just asked around. Like when I first got into Clip Studio, I emailed a bunch of people that I saw doing art that was like a traditional kind of comic stuff in Clip. And some people were getting really nice like graphite pencil looks. So I was just asking like, what is that? And you get directed around. You can ask people on like Twitter, Instagram, whoever is doing the things that you like, and you can get pretty good information. So I just kind of asked around and gathered a few, and then I've shared with you all a couple of those brushes that work the best for me. But you can totally do a similar thing, execution-wise in Clip, no problem. I'm only using Photoshop now because I'm trying to get a handle on it. I go through phases where if I see that I'm kind of holding myself back from something for arbitrary reasons, then I need to give it a shot again, and I need to really jump in and see if I can't find something that works, because enough people are using Photoshop that it works for them. So I might as well give it a shot. I just had such a bias against it for so long because I didn't like drawing in it. But now using that pencil brush, I find drawing in it's fine. I like Clip and Photoshop for different reasons now. I'll still never catch that like purely manga vibe in Photoshop. I mean, maybe there's a brush out there somewhere, but I use like every inking brush and a handful of brush sets I downloaded, and none of them were close enough. I was like, oh, I gotta find it. I gotta find the thing. I gotta find that magic manga brush so I can do Fuck You, a basketball manga. Yeah, this was kind of just a background idea that I had off the top of my head. It was like, there should be something back there behind her. Just some kind of illustrated feeling of a thing. It doesn't need to feel realistic. It can just feel like a design on a wall or something. So that's what I was going for. And then there's just some color adjustment to it. And I was pretty happy with them. And I'm just doing some slight fading with the eraser to make some of the lines not so stark. And then I'm doing a soft light, or not a soft light, I'm just doing a normal layer with a soft round brush set to around, I don't know, some low opacity. And I think that's when I start to do some glows. Yeah, with the white of the background. I think it's 10% opacity on the brush and 25% flow. So I get this really subtle white glow effect. Yeah. It just helps break up that it looks super pencil-y the whole way through. I still want it to have like a finished illustration look to it. Like I used mixed mixed mediums. That's when you get, it's when you get some mixed drinks and you go ghost hunting again. Like happy medium. But I felt as a progression from the previous piece I did for the Street Fighter thing, I think that the drawing for the Elena one is better than this, but I think that the execution of this is a nice natural progression of where it could go. So I think it's pretty cool, and I'm happy with it. So yeah, that's the colored pencil process as well as what I did for the Chun-Li piece. I hope that you got something out of this, especially the first half of this really is where all the instructional talk was. So hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, comments, or things you'd like me to cover in the future, or things you'd like me to elaborate on, leave them on this post, and I will hopefully be able to address them in the future. So I'll talk to you later, and thanks for your support, as always. This is Piglet saying good night from Pork Shoulder. Is it Pork Shoulder? Man, I forget where I am. Good night.